Hello, this is Desiree Dubonnet from the International Medical University. And today we're going to be talking about certain ideas of the breatharian. The idea of being able to live from energy, sunshine, goodwill, etc.
Now we will see more of the powers of the mind when we turn off the verbal parts, going into the Buddhist philosophy.
That people draw great pride and inspiration from here.
Rambonjan, a 15-year-old boy, has been meditating in dense jungle without food or water for 10 months.
अहिले उहाँले केही पनि लिनु भएको छैन सुरुदेखि नै
वाटर पानी पनि पिनु भएको छैन
हामीले देखेको छैन
Many suggest he is a physiological and cognitive freak with such immense power of mind over matter that it could change the way we look at modern science and medicine forever.
If he's truly gone without food and water, it's difficult to explain on a purely scientific basis, so you'd have to bring in spirituality in here.
The longest a person can go without food has been documented as being around 2.5 months before you die of starvation. In an open environment, breathing normally with warm air surrounding you without any fluid at all, you would last between 4, perhaps 5 days.
Rambonjan has not eaten and, more importantly, not drunk anything for 10 months. By filming him continuously over the next 4 days, we will investigate this phenomenon and discover whether a human being can live without food and water.
It would be impossible to meditate for that long without food and water.
I studied similar cases in past and this is possible.
Through his deep meditation, he's gone into a hibernating state and he is living on spiritual energy.
I can't accept that. It goes against what I know about how the body works, about the nutrition that you need. He's getting food and he's getting fluid from somewhere.
We have a self-righteous fat lady here. Breatharians do exist. The Roman Catholic Church lists over 250 people who have lived without food or water for 2 years. The Buddhists list thousands, the Hindus even more. This is done by spiritual masters who can turn off their verbal mind. The AMA lists none because they cannot turn off their verbal mind. To accuse all the religions as liars is a display of ignorance.
As science progresses, it's pushing God further and further out. And where science hasn't yet encroached, you will find God.
And like 70% of the body is water. Without it, it would affect every physical functioning of the body.
By day 2, you start to cannibalize the stores of protein that you have.
I would say from day 2, your skin is going to get rough, cracks appearing at the corner of the lips, and the skin will lose its color and the brightness and the elasticity.
So far, we have not seen any of these physical changes in the boy's appearance.
He is surviving on nourishment. The question is, what kind of nourishment? We can't, as Westerners, tap into using spiritual force and spiritual energy for nourishment. That's the key here.
To endure solitary existence in extreme conditions, yogic techniques enable you to focus your mind over your body's suffering.
Obviously, if he's genuine, has to use some yogic techniques like feeding on the air, feeding on the breath. There are other techniques where you use a stone, a little stone that you put in your mouth and you feed on the stone. There are all those stories. They are documented in the literature, in Buddhist literature.
To understand what type of yogic technique Ram is practicing from the Sakya tradition of teaching, the Lama sits and stares at the boy.
I'm amazed by this immense the intensity of his determination. He told his mother that he was going to sit there for 6 years and reach Buddhahood, which is very rare. I mean, nobody says that,
They sit facing each other for more than an hour in what seems to turn into a meditation duel. Sweat starts to form on Ram's face despite a lack of movement and an air temperature of only 15 degrees centigrade.
To suddenly start pouring sweat from the face is a very strange phenomenon. He's managing to control his body's physiological process, which no one has demonstrated before. It's not something you ever see in Western society. So how that's being controlled is beyond my level of knowledge.
When he was sitting down, I was doing my meditation. Actually, I was competing. And you know that the sweat came down.
Okay, so why did you sweat?
No, it's a secret thing I don't want to tell you right now.
In ancient Buddhist texts, it is written there is a yogic technique called tumo, which increases the body's temperature under intensive meditation. Sweating is a side effect.
Tumo is a particular form of Tibetan meditation where the exponents are capable of withstanding extremely harsh conditions with very little food, very little water, and very little clothing.
Some lamas are doing meditation in the icy Himalaya. From their body they bring the heat. So, same way, maybe he has done that.
American scientists tested the theory in 1982. Monks were soaked in sheets of cold water. 45 minutes later, steam began rising through the cloth.
Some of the studies that I've been doing have shown that even novices using Tibetan chanting can increase their tolerance to cold pressor pain by 100% or more.
But imagine he can do this for...
Ram Bonjan has been sitting under a tree in the jungle of southern Nepal. His supporters claim without food or water for 10 months. 48 hours ago, we started filming continuously, day and night. Just what should his body be going through?
By day 3, you stop producing urine. The person's blood pressure will fall because there's not enough fluid in the system to maintain the circulation.
His cheeks would really start to get hollow. Your skin is going to get rough and it would crack more easily. It would bleed more easily, especially if someone is sitting in the environment and not really protected from the elements, the rain and the sun and the cold weather.
Ram still looks exactly the same. We've not witnessed him move, eat or drink anything since our arrival. But strangely, we've seen him sweating profusely, an indication he's practicing tumo, an ancient form of meditation. Could this yogic technique explain how he is managing to survive and stay so healthy?
Through the power of his mind, he's been successful in physically lowering his whole metabolic state, so therefore his requirements are also going to drop to 200 to 300 calories in energy terms a day.
He'd have to be taking some nutrition from somewhere. Perhaps it was a tree sap. He would be getting sugars from that, and that would modify fast. That would protect some of his protein stores.
I think he's practicing types of ancient yogic exercises where you can feed on one breath or feed on the elements in the air.
The people in this area, they don't tell lies. They tell the truth that you have. That is also the proof.
After 96 hours of filming, Ram has defied modern science by continuing his meditation and remaining alive. Many of the pilgrims at the site are from a scientific background and are torn by what they see. Is he a miracle or a myth?
त्यति गरेपछि यो विज्ञान रिराइट हुन्छ यो विज्ञान फेलर हो हेर्नुस् यो मोडर्न मेडिसिनको म डाक्टरको कामै छैन यहाँ
विज्ञान फेलर भन्ने मिल्दैन कि यसमा के छन् विज्ञानले अहिलेसम्मको जति आविष्कारहरू गरेको छ नि
We have whole religions built around miracles. Jesus rose from the grave. Millions of people believe that. That's the center and core of their religion. How do we say in another culture it's not possible? Everything is possible.
मेडिटेसन गरेर हैन त्यो मेडिकल साइन्सको कुरा गर्नुहुन्छ नि मेडिकल साइन्स पनि अझै पनि पूर्ण छैन हैन
Prolonged fasting is not as simple as we understand. We all should explore the benefits of this kind of fasting. I was really fascinated to see the boy who is fasting for 6 to 8 months, and that is not at all really so exciting to me because I studied similar cases in past and I can understand this is possible.
Dr. Shah's most famous case is Prahlad Jani, a holy man who claims he has not eaten or drunk anything since he was 12.
I haven't eaten anything, not even now, even though I'm 80 years old.
That made me really quite excited because I knew that this is something going to change the feeling of medical world.
Although I walk 100, 200 kilometers in the jungle, I never sweat, nor feel tired or sleepy. I can meditate for 3, 8 or 12 hours or even months.
Prahlad Jani recently spent 10 days in observation, watched and filmed 24 hours a day.
minute to minute, second to second. And he was kept in a cabin which was sealed from outside. The bathroom was sealed. One of my assistants would remain with him all throughout 24 hours in changing duty. Doctors would come throughout the day at different time, which was not be told to him. And we made sure that nothing can go wrong, in the sense medical world should know that there was not a single loophole.
They took blood samples from me 3 times a day, morning, afternoon and evening. They checked my kidney, brain and put machines all over my body. They were trying to find out which factors made my body work. They put machines inside my body also.
He was not given any food or water, and even when he was allowed to take a bath, the quantity of water was measured before and after to make sure nothing was lost.
As I said, after 10 days, the parameters were all normals. We studied his hematology, and whatever studies you can think of, we could do it.
I will live up to approximately 1,000 to 5,000, maybe even 10,000 years with this kind of body.
That there was no food or water given to this man, that he did not pass urine or stool, and even he did not dribble urine. After a few hours, the urine would appear, some fluid would appear in the bladder, and again it would disappear.
It is possible to modify fluid intake so you produce a very small amount of urine each day. And if he is covered with a cloth, the chances are he could urinate and it would evaporate from the ground or soak into the ground without anyone noticing.
Modern medicine tells us that an average human can only survive for 4 days without water. While confined, Prahlad Jani incredibly lasted 10 days under observation. Dr. Shah has a theory on how he's managing to survive without food or fluid. He feels the holy man is feeding off the sun.
Iradan Manik used to do solar gazing. He says that you have to go to a flat ground and barefooted and just look at the sun.
It's impossible for us to generate heat or light energy from looking at the sun, almost likening it to photosynthesis, which is the process by which plants generate their energy supply. And this is absolutely impossible for a human being to do.
On the first day you look for 5 seconds, but without blinking your eyes. Every few days you increase few seconds, and maybe after a month you come to a minute or so.
In fact, staring at the sun would damage the retina of the eye.
Scientists from America also examined him several times in ophthalmic system, and he found nothing abnormal.
The sun transmits energy through a hole in the holy man's throat, producing a sticky, solid lump that he can redigest. This, he claims, refuels the chakra power points in his body.
It is not a miracle, it is supernatural.
Could these results provide the answer to how the boy is surviving without food and water? When we get back to the site, we are met with a very different scenario. While we were away, 59 people witnessed Ram spontaneously burst into flames as fire erupted from his chest.
On the 5th of January, Wednesday, around 8 o'clock, we saw fire coming from him. He stood and threw the cloth in front of him and was naked in the middle of a burning fire. And then after some time, in a very soft voice, he called for his brother. He asked for a red rope to be thrown over him. He wrapped the cloth over his body and he said, let him concentrate on his meditation and do not disturb him.
We reset our cameras to record the next 4 days and nights. The length of time it takes for a human to die without fluid. This is the only way we can prove if he is genuine or not. After 48 hours of continuous observation, Ram still hasn't moved.
What is almost unbelievable is the fact that this child manages to stay in the same position during waking hours and sleeping hours.
Try sitting for 30 minutes or an hour, 3 hours, not moving, just concentrating.
And within 24 to 36 hours, where the skin surface reaches the contact point of where you're sitting, you will get damage to that skin area. And the formation of what we know in the Western world is called a pressure sore.
It is the most challenging thing he's doing it. Incredible.
A few hours later, he begins fidgeting and jerking.
What you probably notice if you scrutinise your footage very carefully is that there are very small changes. What he's actually doing is shifting balance maybe from one buttock to another to relieve pressure points and allow blood flow back to that tissue.
Ram appears to show no classic signs of degeneration through fluid loss, but a closer look at our footage might help us understand his physical and mental health.
He looks unwell. If you saw this individual sat against a wall in London, you'd be very concerned about how he looks.
As life passes him by, Ram just sits calmly meditating.
There is a swelling in his neck, but whether that represents a goiter or an underactive thyroid is very difficult to say. Having a severely underactive thyroid would mean that your metabolic rate is incredibly low, which means that you can survive for a very long time without food and fluid. It almost looks like you can see the ribs showing through, and that would represent quite advanced starvation, and you started to waste away the muscles between the lungs, between the rib cages. Probably sat in that position well away from individuals is the safest thing for him in order to prevent an infection that could ultimately kill him.
Is Ram now a victim of his own success, being slowly starved to death for profit? Only time will tell.
This could turn out to be a very sad story.
With a prolonged deficiency of food and water, your brain is going to lack the glucose, you're not going to have enough fluid in your system.
As you progress without those fluids, you become delirious. On day 4, that confusion will get worse. You may start fitting, your body is going into kidney failure, and ultimately the person dies of dehydration.
To rule out foul play within the secure inner enclosure, we defy the committee and enlist Prem Lema, Ram's oldest friend and carer, to get a closer look.
In the beginning, he used to walk around this tree in the morning chanting mantras. After that, he meditated for 3 months before going into the deep trance that he's in today.
After a thorough search inside the tree and the ground area surrounding Ram, there's nothing suspicious. No food pipes buried or supplies hidden.
It's very difficult when you have that belief that you have an individual that has transcended our normal biological needs of food and fluid. It's very hard to...
It's hard for her to give up her beliefs.
It's very hard to reject that if you truly believe. It's very hard to...
Her beliefs are rigidly adhered to and clung to.
Reject that if you truly believe.
No one really knows what Ram is thinking, how he is surviving, or if he is Buddha. And so it turned out. March the 13th, 2006, events took a turn that no one could have anticipated. Ram disappeared. Some reports suggest he's gone deeper into the jungle to continue his meditation in peace, undisturbed.
So now we have shown that underneath the words, there are superpowers of the mind. Fact. Proven. Established.
Facts that tell us of an idea of a different type of reality, beyond the hardcore materialism, going into the energy of the universe and the energy of the body.